Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. We're going to continue with the rest of the show. We're getting into the final stages of the show. We're here with the Nation of Gods and Earths. We've been talking about the 5% nation and their origin and the etymology of the terms, and got a lot of good information. We learned who is God, we learned who is Earth, who is 5%, who is 10%, who is 85%. And so we got a lot of good information. In the last segment, we were talking about a lot of stuff, actually. One of the things that we talked about was holidays and traditions and things of that sort, and which ones we celebrate, which ones we don't. And typically we don't really celebrate specific holidays by term, which is, I don't want to say ironic, but I guess, we're in line in a lot of things, simply because I made a personal decision to not mentally say, oh, great, it's Thanksgiving, let me be happy on Thanksgiving. Like, I don't do that. I kick it, with people that I care about and watch the game, but, and I enjoy not going to work that day. But, as far as it being Thanksgiving and me being giddy about that, that's like not happening. The same with others. But I did have a question from Hakeem. Hakeem is asking, why is Kwanzaa acceptable? Didn't Karenga kidnap and torture black women, have Black Panthers killed, and wasn't he an informant for the FBI? Anybody want to address that comment?
But the point is that, sometimes you got to put aside the messenger and look at the message, and the principles and the concept behind Kwanzaa is what's important, and this is the way I see it. It's the principles and the concept behind the idea that's important. Not the person that delivered it. Because, if you look throughout history, at these different messages and things of that nature, trouble arises always when you put someone on a pedestal, and you think that they're above, so to speak, that they have no fallacies or they have no flaws, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes you got to separate the message from the messenger. So I don't know what that man was. He could have been all of the above. But does that then negate the concept that he came up with? And I don't think that it does. I think the concept is bigger than him.
I actually, I 100% agree with that. And I'll say more about that in a few minutes when I get into my history piece, because there's a piece that I want to kind of address with regards to that. As a matter of fact, now is about as good as time is ever for me to get into that. I always do, at this stage of the show, I do two things before we get into our rants and our closes. I always drop a little piece of history. Usually I look it up. Sometimes it's off the dome. It really does depend. I don't get into a whole long stretch of it, but just a little jewel that I like to share with folks, and then I profile a missing child. So I'm going to do those two things, kind of get the housekeeping out, and then we'll have everyone who wants to kind of have their final say-so, and then we're going to close it out. The history that I wanted to drop, a lot of folks may or may not be aware, but tomorrow is November 22nd. In 1963, President Kennedy was murdered. And we can get into the conspiracy theory and whether, Oswald did it on his own, and that's not really where I'm going. Where I'm going is the fact that the killing of Kennedy, you can argue, changed the course of Black America. How? Because it was the comments that Malcolm X made in the aftermath of the killing of Kennedy, when he talked about the chickens coming home to roost, is what got him excommunicated from the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. And we know that his excommunication was supposed to last 90 days and ended up being permanent. And so when he ended up leaving the Nation of Islam is when a lot of the things that Elijah Muhammad was doing behind closed doors became exposed. Mm-hmm. It also led Malcolm, now that he had some time, to make that pilgrimage to Mecca, where he completely opened up his thought process. He completely changed. I don't want to say completely changed. That'd be speaking hyperbole, but his mindset changed a little bit. And when he came back, he was a different type of leader, which made him even more of an enemy to the folks in the Nation of Islam. And we know, of course, how that ended up turning out about a year later in February of 1965. So the killing of President Kennedy, you could argue, completely changed the course of Black America. Ain't No Half Stepping with Marcus J, live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio. At this time of the show, we always profile a missing and or exploited child. Tonight is no different. We're looking for Star Jackson. Star Jackson has been missing since June 3rd, 2016, my 42nd birthday. June 3rd, 2016, from right here in the Cap City. She's a 16-year-old Black female. She stands 5'2", weighs 140 pounds. She was last seen on June 3rd, 2016, wearing a jacket, faded blue jeans, and white tennis shoes. If you have seen Star Jackson, please contact the National Center for Missing and or Exploited Children on their website, missingkids.com, or contact them at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678, or if you happen to be here in the capital city of Richmond, Virginia, you can contact the Richmond City Police Department at 804-646-5125. Ain't No Half Step on Marcus J. It's time for us to close out the show. We're going to do that with our rants, and it's time for us to do that with our closings. And once again, this is an opportunity for everyone to state their piece. If you didn't get a lot in earlier, now's your opportunity to say your piece. Try to keep it 2 to 3 minutes, everyone, at max. And I'll start with you, brother, and we'll just go around the room and end, of course, with our ladies. Go ahead.
Peace. I want to add on to what you was just stating a second ago. You know what I mean? Also, when Allah left the temple that same year, before Malcolm X, and where Malcolm X was the minister, and when Allah left the temple, you know what I mean, that was the earthquake that rocked Temple Number 7, because he proclaimed the black man as God, and he wasn't concerned with, well, he realized not his jewel wasn't teaching the old, that there was a generation of youth out there that this message had to reach. So he had outgrew the temple. He was no longer Clarence 13X. I don't say Clarence 13X gave birth to the nation of gods and earths. Allah did. You know what I mean? As Clarence 13X, he came into a self-realization of who he was, and he elevated into being Allah, because that's how he seen himself, and he carried it out. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to add that on, man, because that was the earthquake that rocked that, and even Malcolm X, even though it's not told in the movie, or maybe in the book, there's a small section in the book where Alex Haley asked Malcolm X about the Blood Brothers, and he said, oh, them the 5%. Or there was the question the other way around, he asked him about the 5%, he said, oh, them the Blood Brothers. We always had a relationship, even after Allah and Malcolm X both left the temple, they both still used to meet and talk about their plans for building their nation. Right. So there was no animosity between Allah and Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? Or with a lot of other brothers and sisters at that time, but those are the things that you rarely will get to know or hear. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I just wanted to mention that.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't know that. I had a question for you, brother, real quick. When you mentioned he was known as Clarence 13X while he was in the nation, what was he known as after he left Temple Number 7?
Allah.
Allah.
Some people call him Clarence. Some people still call him Clarence. Some people call him the Father. Okay. Some people call him Puddin'. Okay. Some people call him Put. But it's the name that he elevated himself into. He said his name is Allah. That's how he came and taught us.
Right.
He said, my name is Allah. That's how he addressed himself to the world, and that's how we address ourselves to the world. As his sons and daughters, we the family of Allah's, and his family of the earths. You know what I'm saying?
And for those folks who may not be familiar, Allah's God.
That's right.
Allah's God, brother.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace. I want to say, just think about all the questions and the people called in. Think, make sense. I promote making sense. You know what I mean? Thinking and doing your own research. I know that's been said by numerous gods and earths in the end of the day. Do your research. You know what I mean? It's something that we say in this nation. One only knows what one teaches self. He, her, self. Right? So that basically means you have to. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean that you necessarily are in that understanding or really know it. You know what I mean? You got all to know. You got to look, listen, and observe. You know what I mean? You have to research. You have to you have to research the research. You know what I mean, I know it's kind of redundant, but you have to make it to a point where there's no shadow of a doubt. You know what I mean, when you talk about something, you know what I mean, you have knowledge. The knowledge is the foundation. You know what I'm saying, so you got to take that knowledge to the process of wisdom, because we got knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know what I mean? That's looked at as man, woman, child, also sun, moon, and stars, and so forth and so on. This is the reality. This is the cipher, 360 degrees. Anything outside of that is an illusion. You know what I mean, it's imaginary. You know what I mean, so this is the reality. We talk about God and earth. You know what I mean, man and woman, original man and original woman. You know what I mean, so anything outside of that is an illusion. So we look at when you try to take things out of the realm of everything, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, man, woman, and child, you start to lose your what? Self. You know what I mean? So I just say this makes sense. You know what I mean? This makes sense. That mystery God is to take you out of the realm of looking at the reality of who we are. You know what I mean? Man, woman, and child. You know what I mean? It's nothing other than that. You know what I mean? It's nothing other than that. Everything you see is that. You know what I mean? So I just want to say that.
I appreciate you, brother. Brother Terrell.
Yeah, peace. My rant is that I'm getting tired, or the current events as far as with the police. I'm getting tired of them murdering our young women, children, and getting paid leave. Right? I'm getting tired of them saying that there's good cops, but the good cops are not telling on the bad cops. The judge, the prosecutor, and the police, they all work hand in hand. Right? So I'm ranting about how they're not being held accountable. The bad cops are not being held accountable. They have a code, the blue code of silence. They always say, all cops are not bad, but the good cops are not giving up the bad cops because they're not being convicted. My other rant is that how Ruth, the white boy that killed 9 people in church, how the undercurrent, his trial has been going on, but it's been an undercurrent because the election has been going on. But it had brothers, that I know, my brother Born King, he's been, he's on top of things of that nature, and he speaks his mind on Facebook, for the 5% newspaper, and they intervene his court case, because they trying to say that he's not competent now. You know what I'm saying? Which is I consider to be the BS. You know what I'm saying? They trying to get him, he trying to claim insanity so he can go into the mental institution for 10 years, or say 10 years, and then get, and be free, get kicked out. You know what I'm saying? Instead of being charged for 25 to life or even the electric check. And the other guy that killed Castile, right? He got charged with second-degree manslaughter when he should be charged with murder. The brother, and that was filmed by his girlfriend, live streamed on Facebook. How they informed him, and then when they asked him, why he shot him, it was like he said he don't know. I mean, that's what I have a rant about.
Nah, I can dig it, brother. I feel your passion. I feel your passion. I think that the one thing that I will address is the charge. It's usually legal reasons why they charge a certain way, because the threshold for murder is more difficult to prove, which is the reason why George Zimmerman got off, because most of us knew that was going to happen because he was overcharged. It wasn't a murder. We get caught up in the emotion of wanting to see justice, but we also are within a system that we need to know and understand. And George Zimmerman wasn't guilty of murder. He was guilty of manslaughter. So if they had charged him properly, he would be in jail right now. So then that's hard to swallow. It really is. It was hard for me to swallow at the time until I had to go and do the knowledge and I understood it. But that's the deal, and that's the same thing with Castile. So I appreciate your passion, brother, because trust me, I feel it. And I typically don't go behind folks when they rant. I usually just let it go, but that one I felt like I wanted to build with you on that one. So I appreciate you, brother. I want to save our ladies for last. Our brother True, thank you for bringing everybody here, and I'll give you your love here in a few minutes. So go ahead, brother.
Go ahead. Well, look, my rant is short and sweet. Peace, family. Take your heads out of the clouds. Put it firmly back on your shoulders. That's it. Peace.
And you're going to just go ahead and drop the mic like that, huh?
Yeah, I got to drop the mic just like that, man.
All right, ladies, you guys want to close it out with the final word? Our sister hasn't said much tonight.
I know, I haven't said much, and that's my rant, because I was too nervous to say much. But I will say this. Supreme mathematics and supreme alphabet, that's our language. Today's supreme mathematics is wisdom, knowledge, all being born to understanding. Today is the 21st of the month. Wisdom representing the number 2, knowledge representing the number 1, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 representing understanding. Anything that was said up here today, we are not a religion. So there are some things that are universal for the nation of gods and earths, like supreme mathematics. However, there are some things that aren't. There are gods and earths who don't celebrate Kwanzaa, and that's their choice. So we are not a religion. So when you hear things up here, it's not for you to take and say, we said all nation of gods or all members of the nations of gods and earths and this and that. That's not what we intended to do. I also wanted to add on a little bit about the things that we do here in Richmond, Virginia, Victory Allah, and just reiterate it. Our family days where we do coordinate with other organizations, our Children's Day where we recognize the growth and development of our children and giving out our school supplies. When we do things, we try to coordinate. Like when we having this spoken word open mic, we're doing it at a Black-owned business so that we can support it and keep group economics. We complain that there are a lot of our businesses that are shutting down, but we don't support them. Even if you just have your event there and everybody there patronize it, you are now supporting that business. So when we have our functions, we strategically have them at places that will give that company the exposure. We came here, there's some gods and earths who never heard of Legacy Internet Radio, but they do now, and hopefully they will continue to listen as a result, and maybe we'll have this whole room packed the next time we come up here, because we'll be back. And when we do come back, I won't be as nervous. That's my rant. Peace.
The way you spoke so powerfully and eloquently just now, I don't know why you were nervous, but I appreciate you.
Virginia Union.
Yeah, we got Panthers in the room. We got Panthers in the room, sister.
Peace. I just I think my rant will be short and sweet. I just want to say, regardless to whom or what, and not just in these days and times, in all days and times, we need to come together, and come together on the basis of our commonalities and not our differences, we're a nation of gods and earths, and you have brothers and sisters over here doing something else and so on and so forth, but this is like the age of the organization, so to speak. You could turn around and see 5, 10, 15, 100 different organizations, and so it's no reason that you can't be a part of something, you know what I mean? And then those organizations need to come together collectively and build together for the common cause, because we all got the same common cause, And so sometimes it's a situation of ego, so-called ego. Some people want to be the head and they don't want to, quote unquote, for lack of better words, submit to somebody else and things of that nature. But, at the end of the day, we talk about this civilization and we talk about, the so-called devil civilization and their so-called rule, you don't want to be submissive to your brother, but you submissive to the devil each and every day. So, you need to keep that in mind and come together with your brothers and sisters and continue to build, you know what I'm saying? And set aside the, I used to study this, but I don't study this anymore, and this, that, and the third. It don't matter what you study. If you got a mind and a head on your shoulders, you know what I'm saying, and intelligence that's in your mind and in your head, you need to be down with something, something that's perpetuating and furthering the cause. That's my rant.
I can dig it. Definitely perfect. I just want to, before I get into my closing, I want to offer you guys heartfelt thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the wisdom and the knowledge. I appreciate the patience. Because I know that oftentimes when what we know is met with opposition, particularly aggressive opposition, sometimes a natural instinct is to be combative. And that there was none of that tonight. And I appreciate that. Not to assume that there would be, but to still thank you for, professionalism and decorum and just coming and sharing love, man. Because that's what I'm about. That's what I'm about. And so I'll have more as I close out here. At this time of the show, I always close it out with my rant and my closing. And just to kind of piggyback on where I was going a minute ago, I think that it's important, and the sister spoke of it just perfectly, stole a little bit of my thunder. We need to be aware of who we are. And we also need to be aware that even though we speak the language of this land, we all have different mentalities. We speak different languages with regards to what our needs and our desires are. But we should have one common goal, and that one common goal is prosperity for our children and for ourselves and for our communities. So it doesn't matter if I'm a member of the Nation, Gods, and Earths, and I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, and I'm a member of pick your something that I'm not saying right now. It really should not matter, because ultimately we in this together. We just elected a brand new president, right? And a lot of folks got their feelings about that, and I'm one of them. I spent a year and a half telling people that this was the smartest dude in America with regards to the mentality of the American people, and if you're not careful, you're going to elect him as your president, and then you're going to be mad. You had your time to organize. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. But you know what the real is? If you a black man or a black woman and you somebody that's really about your family and about your community, who sits in the White House don't affect you. Don't matter. And you can take the emotion out of it and you can look at it for what it is. Whoever gets in there is going to play the game anyway. Mr. I want change, and America is changing, and all of that is about to leave office in 6 weeks. And yeah, he did some stuff. I'm not going to get into it. He did nothing for black people. There's a lot of folks that feel that way, and that's fine. We can debate that another time. He did some stuff, but he also played the game. Donald Trump talked a whole lot of trash, and then on the day after he got in there, he said that he wasn't going to get rid of Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, which was a paramount piece of his entire campaign. You know why? Because somebody got in his ear and said, you can't do that. He's going to play the game. He's going to play the game his way, but he's still going to play the game. So what we going to do? We're going to bicker and fight and question each other in ways that aren't really important with regards to the overall advancement. If that is for the sole purpose of sharpening our tools, then I can dig it. But if it's for the purpose of trying to catch me because you disagree with me, that's small. It's petty, and it's beneath us. We've all seen it. I'm not even talking about here in the studio tonight. I'm not even talking about here on the show. I'm talking about conversations that we've all had, that we probably going to have this weekend when we go to visit our families on not Thanksgiving. But we need to respect one another, and we need to continue doing that. And we also need to know it don't matter what's going on 90 miles away from here. as long as we doing what we supposed to be doing in our own household. That's the Marcus's unrelated rant that ain't got nothing to do with what we in here talking about tonight. It's the end of the show, y'all. We replay the show in its entirety immediately following the closeout here. So just give me a few minutes to get it uploaded, and if you missed anything, you can go back and hear it